We're live. Hello, everyone. So today is another day where I do my live stream and I answer people's questions. This is Office Hours. So twice every week, I answer people's questions for an hour, and it's kind of fun. Okay, so, and I need to grab a link to that and send this to folks on Discord. So if you've never been a part of this before, let me share my screen with you to show you something really quick about this. There we go. So yeah, on my website, kcd.im/office hours or kinseydods.com/office hours, you'll find this page that explains everything. The office hours, like all the text and chat and everything that I send goes to Discord. And I do not, I don't know if live chat is enabled, but I don't like it because people are mean. So let me make sure that it's disabled really quick. Yeah, it's enabled. So we'll go to live chat and it's already disabled, but we're gonna just do that to explicitly disable it. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. Very good. Okay, so yeah, if you want to chat, then please do join us in Discord. You can find that at kcd.im/discord. It'll take you right here. And if it sounds like I am sick, it's because I have the virus. I got infected. I am a schmuck. It happens. So yeah, that's what that's all about. But I'm feeling mostly good. Not like it's not been too bad for me. So but that's why I am lacking in energy and enthusiasm by just a little bit. So other than that, I'm happy to be here and excited to answer questions that people have. So feel free to ask them. Preference always goes to the people who are in the Zoom call. But yeah, we typically run out of questions in the Zoom call, and I'm happy to answer the questions in Discord as well. So take it away, folks in the Zoom call. What would you like to talk about first?
Hey, Kent.
Hi, how's it
Hey,
going, Jinhao?
yeah, this is Jinha. Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you? I'm sorry to hear that you got a virus. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I know
yeah,
that sucks.
it's
I'm
a bummer.
sorry. Bummer. Yeah. I'm living in Vancouver, and it's getting worse here as well.
Yeah, Utah was not very, didn't take the virus very seriously, I think. So
Yeah. I hope you get better.
thank you.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Kind of surprised. Yeah. So I post a question in the Discord chat. It's about the location of where we put our hooks.
Yeah, let me find your question. Oh, right. Yes, I remember. Yeah, I just barely read this. So when I saw here, I'll bring this over here so everybody can see. The question is basically, you have some senior engineer who says we have to put all of our hooks in one directory at the global because they're hooks and they're reusable. And you're feeling like, yeah, well, technically, I guess they're reusable, but they're only used by one component. So why would we move it to the global or to like the root directory or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. So he said like he don't think hooks should be coupled with component. That's what he said. So but I believe in collocation, right? So I wonder what your thoughts on this. Yeah.
Yep, I'm on board with you, Jinhao. You're right. Colocation, there's a huge amount to be said for colocation. Just imagine what would happen if your code base grew to 500 hooks,
Yes.
or 1,000 hooks. This is not unrealistic, and putting them all in one spot just does not make any sense. It just makes it a lot more difficult to scale, especially as the team grows, the project grows, all that. So yeah, I am 100% on board with you as far as co-location is concerned. I've got a blog post about this.
Yes.
I think we actually might get, we've got 2 blog posts related to this, but this is the one that I'm specifically talking about. So I'll put that
Yeah.
one in. And I think you may have referenced this before. You've maybe read this, but
Yeah. I read this. Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the thing, like senior engineers, they're the worst. No, just kidding. But often they just have in their mind these really harmful ideas. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I was thinking about like, so if you can look at the code snippet, I pasted there. So
this
you
one, or
know
should I go to this?
this one, sorry, this
Okay.
one, the first one, the one with the Discord link, the yeah, this one. So you can tell it's just like a thin wrapper around use query, right? Use query is the React query stuff. So I'm making a custom hook around them because I think that makes my code cleaner because I can just use certificate to grab certificate. But of course I can just use query. But I wonder how do you feel about this kind of usage of custom hooks? Do you ever make these type of like one-time custom hook that is going to be used by one component and that's it? So
I do that sometimes. I think I see functions as the same as variables. So like we could write in our code, like something like fs.read path.join dir name, whatever extension, whatever. And we could just like write everything as just a list of function calls. But there are reason that we create variables, right? And it's so that the code communicates something.
yeah.
And so I see making custom hooks like this as, or functions in general, regardless of hooks. I see creating functions for this type of logic in the same way. I don't always create custom functions for every line of code or anything, or every snippet of logic necessarily, because that is an abstraction. Now, it's a little bit more than just a variable because you have to pass arguments and take return values.
Yes.
But in general, yeah, like I think about them sort of the same as a way for communication. And
Yes.
so I wouldn't say that this is a real problem. If it is only being used once, then I wouldn't see any reason to export it. I
Yeah.
just put it in the same file, which I'm guessing is what you're doing.
Yeah. That's what I'm
Um,
doing. Yeah.
but yeah, like the thing is that when you start exporting things from files, you increase the complexity of the entire code base, because now the entire code base can access that stuff. And
Yeah.
so you have to think like when you're changing it, you're like, well, I had to go make sure that everybody who's using this is not going to break because
Yeah.
of this change that I'm making. But if
Yeah.
you just put it in the one file and just call it in that file, then you don't need to worry about that, because you can see exactly where it's being used. It can't be used by anything else. So
hmm Yeah.
um,
That totally makes
I'm
sense.
definitely somebody more in favor of longer files than splitting up code into a bunch of smaller files. I don't see a whole lot of value in doing that, and I see complexity when you
Yeah.
do
I
that.
remember Dan once tweeted about his old Redux code is like splitting up into multiple files, and he hated it. And
Uh-huh. Yeah.
something along those lines. I remember. Yeah. So yeah. Thanks, Ken. So I actually have another quick question. It's kind of very go hand in hand with this one. It's like so you see the custom hook I made is just a thin wrapper around this use query utility from React Query. And I've seen that we use this, I do this a lot as use certificate detail and stuff. So someone actually taught me that, oh, maybe you can write a more generic, custom hook, then, we can hide the use query stuff. So because one thing about like I'm working at AWS, we have many other teams that they don't have like a dedicated front end engineer, but they might have to work on the front end code, so they don't know React query necessarily. So by creating such hook, they might not need to like really understand what's going on under the hood, but they can just pass the props or the params to use React query, get that power out of it. So I'm wondering if you think that's a path that worth exploring to make a such
Yeah.
yeah
So and this is like the wrapper.
the wrapper.
Yeah.
So you can change the request to use certificate, so it's just like the same thing the same code snippet I sent to you. So it's like really just a thin layer. You pass this thing to the Rails query, and that's it.
Okay, and what does it add on top of that? Like, does it just literally forward everything over?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, like this is a pretty common thing where you make a little wrapper,
Yeah.
and the argument for this is because then it makes it so you can swap out the underlying implementation really easily, and like if you decide you don't want to use React Query in the future, you can swap it for something else, and you don't have to update all of your code and everything. That's typically the argument for this approach. I've never seen that work. I've seen it not work a lot. So it sounds like that wasn't the argument for you though. That for you is more like, let's make it so that people don't have to know they're using use query under the hood.
Yeah, it's like creating a facade over use query, so they don't need to understand why. But I mean
Right.
but they do need to understand the API you expose, so they're still like learning for them. So I don't
Yeah,
know. So,
exactly. So they need to understand not only React Query, like you're not going to be able to hide that from them, but they also need to understand your abstraction around React Query. So it's actually worse to do something like that. And I would instead and then on the other end of it, like being able to reuse or swap out the underlying implementation. The reason that always fails is almost always, I should say, there you can make that work, but the reason that so often fails is because like basically what ends up happening is you make a very thin layer, just like you're suggesting here, which basically is exactly the same API, and then you decide to switch the underlying implementation to something totally different, like let's go with Apollo or something.
yeah.
And the entire premise is just so different. The whole mental model and the API is so different that you can't preserve the previous API with the new implementation. So I don't see that being like adding a small layer or literally just a function that forwards parameters. I don't see that being any at all useful, and I wouldn't do it.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so you wouldn't take this approach, write something like this. You would just ask them to learn React Query and to contribute to the code base if you want, right?
Yep. And that said, like what you have here is a good idea, I think. And I guess you do have your query enum, but the reason I was suggesting or saying that having custom hooks for specific resources is a good idea is so then you always make sure that you're using the same key
Yeah.
so that two people don't try to access the same resource and then get the key different or the fetching function different. Because if you get the same key in a different fetching function or the same fetching function in a different key, then you're going to have problems. And so that's why making custom hooks here is a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a thin layer that doesn't really do much, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's really insightful. Thank you. Thank you, Kent.
Yeah, sure thing, Jinhao. It's always fun to answer your questions. You have insightful questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Anybody else here in the Zoom have questions before I go to the Discord?
Hey, Kent, this is Vim.
Vim, that's a cool name as a programmer.
Thanks, man. I wish I could say I'm a Vim user, but
don't do it. Don't give in. I've done it. I spent 2 years there and it ruined me. No, I think I was there for like 3 years. It ruined me.
really,
Yeah. I mean, like people love their Vim and everything, and I got
yeah,
pretty good at it, but I finally decided I wanted to get like a real editor I didn't have to build myself. And then I couldn't function properly anymore. And now like I'm paying for it even still.
great. I'll make sure I stay away.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, long time listener, thank you for all your work. It's been awesome following your stuff, and I hope you're on the road to recovery with the.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so too.
I'll throw a quick. It'll be super easy probably. I'm just gonna throw my question here. It's on the fundamentals thing. I was looking at Babel and the transpiling process, and when I looked at with the REPL that you made a link for in the React Foundation or the fundamentals part, you had just had the hello world, and you can check off the box that shows the HTML and it shows how many bytes it is, and then And then when it was turned into JSX, it went up to about 192 bytes. And I'm just wondering, like, is there any relevance to that? Anything that I should like kind of know about that? I feel like it's laying the foundation for something larger in terms of payload size and like what the what the overall effects of JSX are. But maybe I'm reading too into it. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just to be clear for everybody watching, here's the Babel REPL, and this is a simple compilation. And if we were to compile it even further beyond just React, we could include where is env? Here we go. So if we enable the env preset, and we say we want to support I don't know, not IE11, I guess. Yeah, defaults. This is probably fine. I guess, yeah. What if we said we wanted to support IE11? There we go. Oh, no, it just compiles the var. Anyway, eventually, like you're going to, maybe you'll make different features. And eventually, here's a good props, foo, bar, and then rest is, we'll just add a bunch of features to this.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see, like, over time we start plucking, or we start getting a bunch of extra code in here that we didn't write ourselves, like whatever. There we go. Boom. That's what I was waiting for. So at some point, Babel has to put in a bunch of code to compile what you've written into something that will actually run in the browser. So you'll notice that it's not actually JSX doesn't do a whole lot. It's the extra JavaScript features that typically do most of it. So from the JSX perspective, it's not going to be a ton. And actually with React 17 transform, there's the new JSX transform will make it even smaller, because now instead of compiling down to React create element, they're actually compiling to just simply JSX. So like technically even smaller in size than what we have today. So I wouldn't be really concerned about that. Now, as far as like this explosion of stuff, also probably wouldn't really be too concerned about this, because these are little utilities that Babel exposes, and it's using like most modern frameworks that you're going to be using to compile your code are going to reference a separate module called Babel runtime. And so instead of just putting this into every single file, you'll actually just be referencing Babel runtime. And I think there may be a way to show that off in here, but yeah, maybe not. But yeah, it typically will just come from a separate module. So yes, it will be bigger. And that's actually one of the reasons why React has been pushing for function components over class components. Because if you have a class extends React component, whatever, and then here's, as soon as you add a class, then you get like a bunch more code as just utilities, but also the actual code for that thing to work. You start adding methods, or whoops. So like you start adding instance methods and a bunch of other things, and that code just explodes in the size. So yeah, it is something to be to think about, but I wouldn't worry too much about it, especially like if you're in the not IE crowd or not IE11, then you have to compile even less, and so it is even less of a problem. And then additionally, there's like not a whole lot you can do anyway. So the core of your question was, what about JSX? Is that a problem? My answer is not really. Don't worry about that. As far as the rest of the compilation, that's typically not going to be your bottleneck most of the time. Just make sure that you're using a framework that has been fine-tuned for what you need. And if you can fine-tune it to specifically like the browsers you support and everything, then those are ways that you can improve things. But you probably have other performance improvements that you can make to your app before you get down to that level.
Gotcha. Thanks, Kent.
Yeah, sure thing. Cool. Anybody else in the call before I check out what we've got left in Discord?
Hi, yeah, I have a question.
Oh, first.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Ty.
Okay, thanks. So we've been converting some of our tests from Enzyme to React testing library. So we're still getting our feet under us. We found a really good use case in testing our React hook forms that we've been spinning up. But we've been having some issues with the length that the test has run for, to the point where sometimes when we're running process intensive stuff like Docker composes and stuff like that, we're getting timeouts. And sometimes those timeouts aren't being communicated through Jest. It'll just hang indefinitely until you click the window and Control-C. I was wondering if I could drop some code into Discord and ask for your opinion on the structure.
You can totally drop some code in there. So you mentioned you're using Docker Compose to like in your test. Is that like something your test is doing?
No, just I just was giving an example of like a processor intensive task, like resource intensive task. Like I'll be on a Zoom call and be on live share, and it'll slow my Jest test suite down, so it'll take longer, and then my tests time out. If I'm not doing anything on my computer, my tests run fine pretty much every time.
Gotcha.
But
yeah, I've sometimes seen some of my bigger tests time out on slower machines, like on CI and stuff. That's super annoying. Yeah, you can drop some code here in the Discord, and I'm happy to give it a look. Yeah, here we go. So we've got this fill out field. What is that doing? Oh, no, I see it. Never mind.
Yeah. So all of the async calls that we use to validate the form are stubbed out, pretty much just the email validation, I guess. And then our company name, we use a service to autofill some of that data. So that's async too, but
I don't
those
see
fetches
anything.
are stubbed.
Yeah, I don't see anything in here that seems like it would be particularly problematic from a performance standpoint. This all looks pretty standard. Yeah, I see you have a timeout set there for 10 seconds. Is that right at the bottom?
Yeah, we were just there's a lot of tinkering going on in here.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to see if what the magic was that we needed to put in there to get it to work. So
hey Ken, I got a suggestion. So I know that from my work, we have like limited resources when it comes to our virtual machines, our boxes that we run stuff on. And two things what we've been able to do to bypass tests that are like they're just running extra long for whatever reason is we will set the max amount of workers for Jest on a global level, so that it only will use one CPU thread or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also will do things like Jest set timeout for specific tests, and usually set that at a higher number, like 8 or 10 seconds.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that the Jest set timeout thing is basically what he's doing here with the 239 online 239. I think those are do end up doing the same thing. Yeah, the first thing you were talking about is you can turn that on with the run in band flag that will just not spawn separate processes to run things in parallel and just run it all at once.
Exactly.
Or in sequence. And yeah, that's a pretty common thing that people have to do on CI, which is just a real pain because there is overhead in Jest running things in parallel. and if that overhead is just enough, then a slower machine might not be able to do it, or a machine experiencing heavy load. Yeah, another thing to maybe consider here is this. It is possible. I'm not going to suggest that this is what it is, but it's possible that your count details with context component there is has some performance problems, and if that's the case, then the test would naturally be slow as well. So that might be something to look at to see if you can solve some performance problems, just both for the user as well as the tests. Yeah, that may or may not be a contributing factor to the issue here. I would be interested to like if I were debugging this, one thing that I would do is add a bunch of console logs with performance.now. You'd say console log performance.now, and just see which one of these, which like area or which actions are taking the longest. And that might help you in troubleshooting like why this test is taking so long. Yeah, that's I think that's all that I really have to offer right now.
Okay.
It's no fun. Yeah, I know like debugging this stuff is not good. You know what? There was another thing that might be helpful to you as well. I'm not positive because it didn't end up working out super well for me when I recorded it, but I uploaded it anyway. So let me see if I can find this. Yeah, here we go. At the very end, I was like, I'm not going to upload this, and then I uploaded it anyway. So it may be helpful for you. It'll let you, it'll show you how to profile a Jest test with the Chrome DevTools Performance Profiler. I just literally read the title.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe that'll help as well.
Okay. I'll look into that.
Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else here in the call have any questions?
I can't.
Hi there, Matt.
I have a quick question, and it might be sound a bit abstracted. This question is for snapshot testing. For me, it's confusing to choose when or which one to use snapshot test rather than with just assertions. If the target of snapshot is component, and what snapshot does is that to just remember how component looks. And if the target of snapshot is a return value of a function, whatever, snapshot will gonna remember the same thing and just compare those later on. And but we can compare those with assertions too. And so this is a bit vague to decide whether to use assertions or snapshots in which place to use. And I want to ask if there's a simple rules to choose when to test with snapshots.
Yeah. It's a good question. So my simple rule is don't use snapshots. If you want a simple rule, that's the simplest rule. There are situations where snapshots are useful, but most of the time they're not. So I do have a blog post about this. There we go. Have you read it? Sorry.
Not yet.
Okay, yeah. So give that a read. That'll help hopefully as well. But yeah, basically I use snapshot testing for error messages and code transforms. I pretty much don't pass DOM nodes to snapshots anymore. And if I do use snapshots, then I do inline snapshots so that I don't have this like enormously growing file that just keeps on growing and I don't ever notice how bad it is. So you put it like an inline snapshot and then you can see, and if it gets really big, then you're like, wow, I should maybe make this smaller. But yeah, I don't often use snapshots except for error messages mostly. And the only reason I do that is because with an error message, it's just, it's something that changes pretty frequently, or rather, if it, I guess the only reason I use snapshots for error messages is because I typically, the only text that I typically assert on is an error message. And so if I assert it on other text, like the text content of some div, then and it was a significant length or something, then maybe I would use a snapshot for that. But yeah, my snapshots are really small. They're always inline, and few and far between, I guess.
Hey, Ken, it's Jacob again.
Yeah.
I have a quite the context on that as well from work, where we started doing snapshots for our error boundary and our higher order component errors files, and we started off with like they were super small. The snapshots handled them really well, but like very quickly, like our both those components started to be needed to be shared and used for other things, and those snapshots were constantly breaking. The files were getting out of hand. Ended up being that refactoring everything so that it was no longer using snapshots ended up making the test way more stable in the long run, as well as like kind of future proofing the test as well, so that we didn't have to keep updating snapshots every like 2 sprints.
Yep. It's tale as old as time. I talk about this in that blog post as well. It's just like I've reviewed 1,000-line snapshots before. I mean, when I say review, I'm like air quotes. Nobody reviews those things, and that's why they're no good.
Yeah, can I ask a very quick question? So you mentioned that you use snapshot like very like only almost only just for error messages, and I think that's totally valid. But what about like success message? Like, do you assert on that as well?
You could yeah, you could do a snapshot for a success message as well. And that makes total sense. Like pretty much the situations where I use snapshots for error messages are for like API errors. So like I'm testing an API. But yeah, like you could totally, and actually I do use snapshots for error messages in the DOM. I think even in Epic React, I teach, I show that, and you could do the same thing for like success message as well.
Yeah.
It comes down to like, here's my DOM node .text content to match inline snapshot or whatever.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I could see that being valuable.
And, you said that you use, I'm sorry. You said that you use Snapshot mostly for exception and also for code transforms. And we always change code, and that is what testing is for. And I want to ask what the code transform are.
Sorry, by code transform, I'm talking about a Babel plugin. So if here's an example. I have this Babel plugin called import all that will take this code and transform it into this code. And so this is what my snapshot looks like for that test. It shows the before and the after. I explain it in here, but yeah, that's great. Love it for that. But yeah, not many people write Babel plugins that transform code. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Anyone else in here have questions? Okay, great. Then I'm going to go to the Discord. Let's see. Okay, I think we're on Alicia here. Something about AG grid with testing library. Let me read this first. Okay, let's see what is failing here. I know nothing about AG grid, so sorry about that if I am not totally helpful. Whoa, they have a testing library for AG grid. I was unaware of this. That's interesting. Oh, this is a reproduction of the problem. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Hold it.
So I actually use AG Grid at work, And this could be something like there's a grid API that has things like setting up the grid and like painting things to the DOM. And so if the tests run before the grid API is essentially executed, then it won't be on the DOM, the Jest DOM to actually be read.
Right. Yeah. It looks like they sidestep this by using the onReady prop or this ready prop, which I'm assuming is what that's for. I noticed they're also using JSDOM 14, which is maybe that was recommended at the time they saw it, but you want to use JSDOM 16, which I think is the latest version available now. And if you're using the latest version of Jest, then this just comes by default. Yeah, like it looks like Jacob, what you were saying is a good idea for sure. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, there's some really strange things you have to sometimes do to like trick the Jest DOM into thinking that grid API has been like is actually available and is firing off the methods that are necessary.
Yeah. Let's see here if we go to the test right here. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, they have this little grid ready. Wait for grid. Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay. So let's try. Where's screen? Let's grab screen here. I don't know how much time I'll be able to spend on this since I don't use AGGrid, but here we need a.
I could take a look at it later too.
That would be nice of you. I just want to try and do the new log testing, whatever that testing playground thing is. Yes, let's try this and see what happens.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
See. I don't know, like maybe it'll end up working nicely. Wow, waiting forever. Yeah, that's no good. I have a feeling this isn't going to work in Code Sandbox. It never seems to work in Code Sandbox. Well, now I'm super curious. I'm going to download this thing. See if we can figure this out.
Yeah, your engineering brain's getting the best of you.
Yeah, I just got nerd sniped. Let's see. I'll bring this over here. I want to at least see if it pulls up in the testing playground because that thing is just awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about that tool. I haven't used it yet, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, I'm still installing. Yeah, I think I'll have very limited ability to help here since I've never used AGGrid, but we'll see. Maybe. That's interesting. Oh, that's what they're doing. Okay. The things you have to do sometimes. So yeah, all I know about AGGrid is it seems way more complicated than it should be. But okay, here we go. There, let's try that. Cool. It sort of shows up. So what we're looking for is we're looking for make, model, price, and color. I'm seeing make right here. Make. Yeah, none of this is, but I'm not seeing price or color on here. Here, let's do this instead. Oh, actually, no, it's all right here. Here's our HTML output. Make, you know what? Let's just grab this. We'll do it this way. Okay, make and model price. It's not there.
No, it just stops.
Yeah, that's why React Testing Library can't find it because it's not there. So it's not React Testing Library's fault. something else is up. Yeah, color's not in here either. So, yeah. Here, I'm gonna just do this, add a comment here. If you add a screen debug to your test, you'll notice that price and color do not appear in the output, which is why React testing library cannot find them. I'm not sure why that is.
That's got to be a jest setup with the grid API, most likely.
Oh, you think that like JS DOM doesn't won't render it or something, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's like those grid ready workarounds. They are flaky at best sometimes, and then on top of that, JS DOM sometimes has trouble trying to like paint everything that the grid API gives you, because like you saw, it will give you a lot of junk.
Yeah, I don't know, but hopefully that was sort of helpful, give you a good direction to go, Alicia. And I don't know if Alicia is here, so I'm just going to mention here really quick. Alicia just answered in quotes, sorry, your question. Hope that helps. Okay. We talked about the React query. As far as like a specific video, Epic React has a bunch of videos, as Jacob was talking about. So we've got, where is it? Cache management right there. So if you've got Epic React, then there's your React query tutorial. Good. Glad to see you here, Alicia. Okay, so yeah, answered Vim's question. Okay, Next.js queries. Okay, just curious for feedback on this, I'm guessing. So I'll take a look. The problem is the same state in my component to be in the query. Oh, like the query string, I'm guessing. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this effect is what is updating the page. Wait. The same state in my component to be in the query string. Okay, so you want to, okay, so actually that statement right there, I'm going to stop you before I continue reading, and I'm going to say you're trying to synchronize state. So you've got a component and you're storing, and you've got app state in there. This is with use state or whatever. And you're trying to say, let's move that to the query. But then what if the query changes on you? You need to make sure you update your state. So then you're synchronizing up to the query, but then you're also synchronizing down to your local state. What if you just treat the query as the source of truth? And so you don't manage state yourself, and you only get that state from the query. So that's something to think about. I am actually making this same mistake right here, where I've got my search right here, and I update the query, and I'm synchronizing as well. And I have noticed some bugs, and it's hard to reproduce them, but I have noticed bugs because of my approach. I'm basically doing the same thing you are. And so I haven't come around to it, but eventually I need to switch it completely. And instead of updating my local state as I'm typing, I update the query, and then the query comes, that query parameter, that value comes down, and I load that into the value for my input. So
So like
anyway,
a lifted state pattern?
sorry, what? Yeah, it's basically lifting state. You just treat the URL as part of your application state, because it is. That's what routers do. They just they store their state in the URL. When that URL changes, they re-render. They don't store state manually and synchronize with the URL. They just treat the URL as their source of state. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to read the rest of this because the premise is different than what I would recommend. So see if you can figure out how to just treat the query as the source of truth, and don't manage any state that you want to have in the so yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. Okay, sweet. Idris, what up? Are you watching? Maybe on YouTube. Security aspect of big apps. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so as far as security, like pretty much my feeling on security is you need three things. You either use something that's off the shelf. You have like a dedicated team that is building this product, and you just use that. That ends up working out nicely. But at a big company like PayPal, that's not going to fly. We can't do that. There are actually probably regulations and stuff that make that hard. So then your second option is to have a dedicated team at your company that does that. And then the third option, which I don't really recommend, but like what people do, just make sure you're using a library or a suite of tools that are really proven, and you just like plug and play. So like Rails has their own authentication and stuff like that. So as far as like securing data and private routes, so like front end is kind of interesting because you have to assume that anything that gets to the user's browser is they can see and they're reading, and it's perfectly accessible. Because once it gets across that network, you cannot protect anything. Like you can't send them sensitive data they're not supposed to see and just not show it on the page. Like they can see the network traffic. You should assume that as soon as it gets over the wire, it is totally accessible by them. So because it is. Securing the front end is actually more of, I mean, there are things that you need to do, like there's cross-site scripting and stuff like that, cross-request site forgery, whatever. What is that? CSRF, cross-site request forgery. So yeah, there are those sorts of things you need to worry about. But as far as like showing things that the user shouldn't be able to see, that all is 100% a back-end responsibility.
Yeah, I actually joke because I work at JP Morgan Chase. I joke that private routes and spas aren't private.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot assume that just because the user can't navigate to it in your app, they can't see it. They can, like, I can go to anybody's React website, and like I can literally update state and stuff in here. I can update props. I can do whatever I want to. And then here's the context provider. I can take a look at these values and whatever. Like I have so much control over this app, not just because it's React. Like I can do the same thing. In fact, I do on Angular JS applications. I am all over the place. Like with let's see, element, dot element. Yeah, this is something I did just the other day on an Angular JS website to go get variables that were on scope for an element on the page. It was looking through a table. I wanted to get that table as data, and I just used Angular JS APIs. So yeah, like if it gets across a wire, then it has now been revealed. So it's at 100%.
Yeah, did you see that tweet by Wes Boss where he was talking about?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Wes, I actually responded and said, so you were that guy, huh? And and he later said, I'm sorry if this was like unethical or something, and said that I shunned him or I shamed him. And I was like, dude, I was joking. This, like, I do this sort of thing all the time. Anyway, yeah, so as far as like protected routes and stuff like that, I do have my let's see, blog authentic I don't remember how I said that. Authentication. There we go. So I've got that, and maybe that could be useful. I pretty much don't really think about protected routes. The way that I like it is if I can't see it, just render. So if I'm not logged in, then just render the login screen, even on the page. Like, so often you'll have it like redirect to the login, and then it's got like this query param for where to redirect it to, redirect the user to, or something. I don't know, just render the login screen instead. And that's actually what I show in here. So like, I don't care what the route is. If you're not logged in, I'll just render the login screen. But like, you could bounce them out if you want to. You can make a little private route detector, something or other, but I don't really bother with that. And let's see. I feel like there was another thing on here I didn't answer. Yes, just rely on services like your backend code to secure your apps. Yeah, form validation on the front end is nice. Form validation on the back end is like critical. So keep that in mind. You want both. And actually, so Ryan Florence showed me something with Remix just like yesterday, maybe the day before. And it's so cool because just the way that things are architected, you literally run the exact same code for form validations, front end and back end. It actually is the exact same code. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. I need to dig into it some more and make some demos and stuff because yeah, it's rad. Anyway, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, Teo or Tio. Yeah, let's take a look. I've got 8 minutes left, so let's see what we can get in that time. Okay. Yes, okay. Yeah, so I believe you should be able to use the module name mapper to solve this, but that's actually not the recommended way to do what you're trying to do here. What you're really trying to do is swap out, let's see, Dixie.js, it's an IndexedDB wrapper to mock, and there is a fake IndexedDB. Is this a faker for Dixie.js, I wonder? Let me just see really quick. NPM. Dexy. Yeah, with Dexy. Here we go. Oh, interesting. And it'll automatically mock it. Oh, here we go with Jest. Yeah. Looks legit to me. This is what I would do. Did you try this? I would probably just do this. I'm not sure what magic they do, but it sounds like they polyfill. Yeah, see, yeah, sounds like they just polyfill the IndexedDB for Dexy, which is kind of interesting. Yep, do that. Try that. I'll just copy and paste this. I don't know anything about Dexy, but my guess is this is what you want. And you just sent something, so I will. Yes, tried that, but didn't work. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm not sure what this does, but the next thing, the thing I was going to suggest is use jest.mock, path, whoops, path, if you use the jest mock API to mock the module that's responsible for your interactions with IndexedDB, specifically that connects DB, or maybe whatever whatever you're using to interact with Dexy, then you would prevent that file from actually loading. So sorry, I just have such limited experience with IndexedDB and Dexy that I'm not sure why this isn't just working, because I would expect this to just work. I would not suggest doing a module name mapper. I would definitely recommend using just mock. You can also do the mocks, just manual mocks. 4 ways to create a class mock. My goodness. Yeah, so you want to create a manual mock. This is probably what I would do, is a manual mock, and I would just mock out the whole module itself. This may not be totally helpful to you, but possibly. Let's see. Yeah, testing node apps. I noticed you mentioned you asked this already in testing JavaScript, so I'm assuming that you have testing JavaScript. And testing node apps has, oh yeah, I need to fix the build, getting off of Travis. Yeah, so the testing node apps does teach about mocking out database calls. And so there may be something in here that could be useful to you as well in your efforts there. So.
You move into GitHub Actions instead of Travis?
Yes, because Travis gave open source the shaft.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Travis pricing. Yeah, their new billing basically says you will not be able to run Travis very much. Yeah, it's sad, but it is what it is. So I'm switching over to GitHub Actions. Now, GitHub Actions, I do have a limit of 20 concurrent builds still, but I don't have a limit on how much time I run. So like each individual build has a limit, but like I could just run constantly and not run out of time. That is what differs, I think. So yeah, we're moving. I've started moving all my stuff. Good luck. Okay, cool. So that's it. I finished under time, which is the first for office hours. So good luck, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let me just wrap up by saying I will be doing office hours on Monday, assuming the virus doesn't kill me, which it won't. I'm sure. I shouldn't joke about that because it actually that's very sad. But yeah, so I will be here on Monday. Well, actually, let me double check. I'm pretty sure I should be here on Monday, but it doesn't hurt to just double check really quick. Yeah, it's on the calendar. Nothing should get in the way there. So look forward to that. And yeah, you rock. Have a wonderful day.
Get well soon.